Good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's session here at GSA GradChat. My name is Savova Suma. I'm the GM for Student Engagement, and I'm joined here by Andrew, who's our graduate comms person, as well as we have two special guests, but I'll get to them in a second. Essentially, we're here to talk about job searching and getting some helpful tips from the professionals that are out and about that can support us. But before we kick off, I'd like to acknowledge that the land of your Walloon clan from the Boomerang, we're actually currently hosting from in St Kilda tonight. And so I pay my respects to the elders, past, present, and recognise the strength, resilience, and capacity of Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people in this land. So as I mentioned before, we are really grateful to have two special guests in this evening. We've actually had them both on a session before, but in different capacities. So it's great to have you both on. Thank you so much. And as we kick off, I think we've still got some people coming to the room, but I'll start by introducing our special guests. And if it's the first time to this kind of sessions, you'll be glad to know that the two people today are from an organization called People to People Recruitment or Consulting. And so they are based around Australia and New Zealand, but our two guests are from Melbourne. So we have Mary Savova as a senior consultant specializing in legal support recruitment. Mary has over 4 years experience recruiting graduate to senior level and technical positions within key accounts. Together with her experience in her Bachelor of Business and major in HR, Mary is able to understand the needs of business as well as providing a seamless experience to candidates. So welcome, Mary. And joining Mary is Jessica. So Jessica Hickey is a consultant specializing in recruitment of quality legal and business support candidates and is the go-to teammate for any high volume recruitment projects. Jess's number one priority is filling vacancies fast. Jess is passionate about recruitment industry and is keen to develop her skill set as a recruiter and also educate those who are unaware about the career within this space. So a massive welcome to Mary and Jessica. Welcome to the session.
Thanks, Taria. Thank you. Happy to be here.
So yeah, look, I guess today we're going to sort of heavily rely on your expertise and comments about job searching in particular and where to start. So I sense you've got a presentation or some notes to talk through, and then we will get to some questions. And I know you've purposely left some time for questions because I think from the last session we were lovely inundated with questions and we had to chase some questions up after the session. But definitely today is that time to ask the guys questions. So as we go through the content, please put your questions through the Q&As. It actually helps us gather questions together and try and answer them systematically if we can. We will try and get to people's questions. I do want to finish the session at 7 p.m. because I know it can get late for some people. So bear with us. And yeah, over to you guys.
Awesome. So I'll kick it off and I'll start sharing my screen with you all. So hopefully you can all see that. But basically, yeah, it's just Mary from People to People, and obviously we're here to chat to you about your upcoming job search, or your job search may have already started, and just our tips and tricks to make the experience a bit easier for you. So first of all, who's People to People? People to People is a multifaceted recruitment agency. We're established in 2005 by our group managing director, Mark Smith. We recently celebrated our 15th birthday with a lovely party in Sydney when those were a thing. Since then, we have grown to 8 offices across Australia and New Zealand. Our sole focus is to find quality candidates fast. So we recruit on behalf of clients, businesses and companies to source candidates for their vacancies. In effect, we want to become an extension of the business themselves. So obviously educate and communicate their brand to potential candidates. As I mentioned before, we're very well established within the Australian market, as well as in Auckland, New Zealand. In terms of Melbourne, we were established 5 or so years ago and have grown quite quickly in size since then. Our newest office is Adelaide. One thing that we know for sure is that wherever you go in ANZ, you'll be able to access People to People and our resources. These are the specialisations that we kind of work within in Melbourne. So we recruit vacancies kind of within these particular areas. Of course, these are across lots of different industries. So, you know, financial services, manufacturing, operations, it could be anything, but we recruit primarily within these spaces. Tavita has already introduced the two of us, but here are two very well-lit photos of us, as opposed to kind of what you see at the moment. So yeah, I'm Jess on the left, or on your right, and I'm a consultant here at People to People. I recruit primarily within business and legal support. I graduated with a Bachelor of Business with majors in marketing and HR in 2018. People to People is my graduate position, and I've almost finished up the graduate program here. So I certainly was in your position not too long ago at all. Mary is a senior consultant specialising in legal support. She also graduated with a Bachelor of Business with majors in HR, and is also a very successful product of the graduate program here at P2P. Mary has been at P2P for 4 years and is an absolute wealth of knowledge, and so much so that Mary was awarded the Recruitment Consulting Staffing Association's Rising Star Award for 2020 for her contributions to the industry. So I'd hope to say that you're in good hands. So off to you, Mary.
Yes, thanks, Jess. Yeah, no pressure. But yeah, so like Jess mentioned, both of us have been graduates before, so we can completely empathise with the process. And the number one thing most graduates are always asking themselves is, where do I start? And I know as a graduate and being in uni, you're generally in a little bubble and you feel like that is your whole world, but it is only a very small portion of what's to come. So I guess what we wanted to do today is just take you through a few topics that we thought were probably most relevant in terms of identifying where to start. So what we'll cover today is attitude and mindset, what roles are right for you, looking at CV, cover letter and LinkedIn prep, as well as looking at the application process and just reminding you that resilience and persistence is going to be your best friend throughout all of this. Great. So the first point, attitude and mindset. So you definitely want to start on the front foot. The last thing you want is to be overwhelmed during this whole process. So what I'd suggest when you are applying is definitely start the process a couple of months before you graduate. They're going through those last exams, and just generally you tend to feel quite a bit of pressure during that time. So alleviate a bit of that stress and start the application process a month or so before if you can, just to help ease that. And that way, you know, sometimes in most scenarios you can line it up nicely that once you get your results you can start in a new job right away. So rather than waiting a couple of months, say you graduate in November, December, and then, you know, starting a role until the following Feb or March, for instance, can be quite tricky. So definitely start with that. Also keep a checklist as well. So you want to look at, for instance, having your key documents. So make sure you do have things like, if you have already any qualifications. So for instance, if you're studying your master's, make sure you've got your things like your diplomas or degrees handy before you're applying. A lot of places do need a transcript and things like that. So that's definitely important to get all your affairs in order and be ready to apply from there. Also make sure, keep it all in one place. So all in a particular folder or in an email folder, things like that. And keep an eye on what's happening in the market. And I think I spoke about this last time in the session for those that were with us. Social media is very powerful. So particularly LinkedIn, if you're more on the professional services side of things, connect with peers well before you plan on working in the industry, just so you can gain some knowledge in that space and you feel better equipped when it does come to the interview stage.
So I'll tackle what jobs are right for me. So there are millions of different companies, roles and job titles out there. Which one is right for you? Market mapping and identifying your key industries is a really good place to start. So you know, key points for this is your core values. So distinguishing your core values is super important. What do you want to see happen to you in your career? So you're looking at company policies, career pages, Formal job descriptions, they're a really good place to start. Identifying what key benefits are your non-negotiables. So is that parental leave entitlements, salary packaging, birthday leave, it could be anything. In addition to that, what does the company stand for, or how do they like to do business? Are they carbon neutral? Do they give back to their communities? How does this align with your own personal values? In terms of industry identification, what industries are of interest to you? This can be a fairly broad question. So I pick 5 and tailor your job searches to those. So get a good understanding of the types of roles available and then switch it up. For example, if you've just finished your marketing degree, you have an interest in financial services, and you have a look at the types of roles that are available in that space, you might find that it doesn't sound like the type of marketing activities that you're interested in. So you might switch it up to, FMCG, for example. I'd recommend doing industry searches on job boards alongside job title searches. I think a friend of mine is just a key example. In her business, the HR coordinator is literally called Good Vibes Coordinator. So if you're looking up HR, you're not going to find that job. So there are definitely some weird and wacky names for jobs these days. And this will ensure you're covering all of your target market. So making sure you're doing your industry as well as your job searches. Market mapping is a really important tool. So having a look at key profiles of leaders that you aspire to. So how do they get there? Where did they start? What does that role look like now? Keeping in mind your preferences may change over time, and no one career journey will be remotely similar to another. But getting an understanding of where the role titles may lead will give you a good insight as well. Kinds of companies. So this is different to core values, as it doesn't speak to the direction of the company, but the state that they're in right now. So are they a startup? Are they ASX listed? Are they boutique in size? Or will you be one of 50 graduates in a program? This is a really good opportunity to think about how you learn best. After all, the first 12 months of any new role, graduate or otherwise, is about learning. So with that in mind, are you the type that learns best when you're one-on-one with someone, or are you happy to be part of a big group? How does the company facilitate your success, and how does that align with your learning style? A tip in regards to this, I went through this process big time when I graduated. My 2 majors, marketing and HR, are very far apart on the spectrum of things to major in. And something I found super useful was what I would refer to as a career coffee chat. So I reached out to my network and to people who had jobs I found interesting, and I would meet them on their lunch break for a quick coffee. That might now be virtual these days. I had a maximum 30-minute chat about their career and how they got to where they are. I sat down with police officers, prosecutors, directors, retail managers, and I can definitely tell you one thing. People love talking about themselves, and it's certainly a bit of an ego boost when a graduate makes a point of saying, you're someone I aspire to be. And I guess the only thing that they can say is no, I'm busy or whatever. Doesn't hurt to ask. And one thing I can also tell you is that the only reason I responded to an email on LinkedIn from a colleague about a job at People to People is because someone had said to me, I think you would make a really good recruiter. And that someone was in industry and someone who'd really changed my mindset. So it's a really tangible way of figuring out kind of where do I belong. And just, yeah, a good opportunity for you to kind of map your market. Also, if you are sitting down with people and, you are letting them know that you are in the process of finding a job, they might be speaking to another colleague or someone else they know, and they're looking for a graduate, and you get referred that way. So making your network aware that you are on the job hunt is something that's super important and can be really beneficial. Here you go, Mary.
All right. So the next topic is CV prep and online profiles. So this is a daunting task. We've all probably been there before. You know what you do, but sometimes articulating that into words can be a little bit difficult for some industries more so than others. But I guess the first thing you need to remember is you definitely want to tailor your CV and your cover letter to the job that you're applying for. So, Jess and I, particularly in this time, unfortunately, with so many redundancies across different industries, our ad response, it has gone through the roof. What used to be 10 or 15 applications for one job. Now, in some instances, we have over 100 applications. So to manage that, you have to be quite specific with what you're looking for. And so many times we come across it where candidates are using the same cover letter for 15 different jobs, and it's not tailored. So, you might get a cover letter from someone that's got a science background applying for an admin job, but all they've spoken about in their cover letter is about all their science knowledge, which is great, but how is that transferable to the role that you've applied for? So if there's one thing that you take out of today, is that just be really meticulous with your application process and have a look at your background and the job you're applying for, and make sure that the two marry up. So with your personal profile, so these are things like Facebook, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Do make sure they're private. You might not think so, but people do check these, and although you might not be having a crazy spontaneous lifestyle at the moment, things do pop up. So, and sometimes it's even things that other people may have tagged you in that you might not be aware is public. So something that Jess and I and the team in Melbourne do on a regular basis is just type ourselves into Google. What comes up if you were to search for yourself? What would you see? Would you be happy if an employer was to see what they're seeing? So just do a quick little self-audit. Also look at your LinkedIn profile. So this should be a reflection of your CV, in just a more brief of a snapshot. Particularly some industries use LinkedIn heavily for recruitment. Hiring managers are generally checking LinkedIn to see what sort of talent is out there. So it's a great way for your own personal brand to do the hard work for you. When you're putting your CV together, there's a lot of information people put in there that it's probably irrelevant. Some things we get come up, for instance, their gender or their life preferences or marital status. These things aren't relevant to the job search, and realistically it's probably better to not put those things on there, because unfortunately there is still, as bad as it is, there are still a lot of employers that do discriminate out there. So to avoid anything like that, do just include the essentials. So that's things like your name, your contact details, what your current working rights are, and even if you've got a notice period. And then you want to jump into things like your job title, current company and location, and years, and also the dates that you've started and finished. That's a really important thing, particularly if you are applying for more senior positions where they state the years of experience that they need someone to have. Quite often we see people say, executive assistant XYZ company, but it doesn't tell us dates. So that could mean someone's been in that role for 6 months or 6 years. So do outline the dates that you've been in that role, and also go through your key responsibilities, but also key achievements. Some industries, particularly when it comes to company values, they do look for people that have some particular achievements. So whether that's been recognised as an employee of the month or following company's values and things like that, or even just extracurricular achievements that you've had in your own personal life, definitely make note of them to help you stand out. Systems used is also really important. Some industries, particularly like accounting and IT, even marketing systems are quite important. So definitely make note of those. And just remember that people are looking for a specific set of skills when they are recruiting. So make sure you do highlight those in your CV. And even if it is a role, for instance, I know Jess has done this in the past. Her CV was, she's got a great experience, but she was applying for marketing roles. So she tailored her CV to more, to bring out the marketing experience she'd had, as opposed to some of the more basic admin duties that she'd had. So do make it stand out to look a bit more appealing to the particular market that you're applying for. Sorry.
So in terms of the application process, so this can be a really fast, well-oiled machine, or it can be really drawn out and grueling. And I think in times like this, we are finding that the application process and the actual interview process is a lot longer these days, because obviously for these companies, budget is an issue, so they really do want to make sure that they're recruiting the right candidate for the role. And what unfortunately you'll find is that the competition unfortunately has gone up a little bit. There are more candidates in the market, so therefore it is the companies are kind of spoiled for choice in that they are able to kind of look at a lot of candidates. So some tips and tricks, I guess, on how to, get through it. Definitely don't have any expectations of how you think the process will go. Every time it will change, and not every company will run their process the same. So definitely don't have minimal expectations. Definitely in terms of key tips and tricks, online alerts. So make it really easy for yourself. Set up your job boards alerts job boards. So you Seek, Indeed, LinkedIn. So jobs drop straight into your inbox when they become live. It's a really easy way to just kind of wake up every day and have kind of potential opportunities sitting in your inbox. Connect with a recruiter. So now, after you've kind of got everything sorted and you're ready to start applying for jobs, now is a really good time to connect with a recruiter. So they may be able to give you insight into the current market and, best of all, opportunities that may not have hit the job boards yet. So feel free to reach out to any recruitment companies that specialises in the industry that you're looking to get into. The RCSA, so the Recruitment Consultant Staffing Association website, and we'll send you a link to that as well, actually has a member directory. So people do need to, obviously, companies pay money to be part of this membership directory. So basically what that means is they're really well established and they have been vetted. So they are really good recruitment agencies. And they have a member directory that you can search on. You can search by industry, job title, specialisation, area, so location, if that's an issue for you. So you can definitely jump on their website and have a go and reach out to some recruiters that might be able to help you. Setting up a database. So this is one of Mary's key tips and tricks. So setting up a spreadsheet with the role title, the date applied, the key contact and the status of your application. You need to know exactly where your information has been sent. And also, you will find that you are applying for, more than 1 or 2 jobs a day or more than 1 or 2 jobs a week. It can be really easy to lose track. And the worst thing you want to do is have a call from a recruiter or a hiring manager to say, hey, I've received your application. And you're like, which one? So you know exactly where your information has been set. Oh, yeah, no problem. XYZ, how can I help? I'm really interested in the role because, and take from there. As Mary mentioned before, tailoring your CV and cover letter to the role. No spelling mistakes. Just don't do it. Upload in a PDF format. Don't upload in Word. Don't upload in whatever the Mac format is. I can't remember it because I use a PC now and did use a Mac in uni. So I've been caught out before. Don't upload in that format. Upload in PDF. It's the most versatile, and make sure you combine your documents as well. So not a lot of recruitment agencies or companies, for example, will actually allow you to attach a cover letter. They'll just ask for a CV. So one way to get around that is to have your cover letter and your CV in the same document. So they don't have any choice. They're seeing both. So, that's a little sneaky tip. So please make sure that you're including any info that you have requested. They have requested. So if that's photo ID, it's proof of your qualifications, anything like that. As I mentioned, there are hundreds and hundreds of applications that we do sometimes need to go through. So unfortunately, if people aren't just kind of stepping up to the mark already with the information that we have requested from you, we unfortunately just don't have time to follow that up. So making sure that you're putting all of those details across is really important. Formatting documents, making sure that your documents are formatted correctly. They're formatted nicely. We can read them. We're not searching for information. That's super important as well. I want to see it, we want to see it within 1 to 2 pages. Kind of, we're looking for that key set of criteria. And, for example, if, you were going for an administration position, this is particularly relevant in legal, and your CV is all over the place, your information's everywhere, it's formatted incorrectly, you've got different, Word fonts and sizes and things all over the place. A key part of an administration-based position is formatting documents. It's a huge part of a role within a legal background. So if I can't see that you can do that already, it does kind of diminish the quality of your application, kind of no matter how much experience you do have. Same with, high level of attention to detail. If this is listed on the job description and you have spelling mistakes in your CV, you're showing a low level of attention to detail. So you're already communicating to me that, it's just not, not that you don't care, but it's just not at the standard that we're asking for. We are asking for a high level of attention to detail. So
something that I'd add to that as well, just like our uni essays and thesis, all that sort of stuff. Once you've looked at it a couple of times, you almost can't see anymore. So, and you're likely to miss something. So as you would anything else, do get someone else to look over it as well. It might be that they notice there was a missing capital letter or missing full stop or whatever it is. So just ask someone, whether it's a peer or a family member, colleague, just say, hey, do you have 10 minutes to look over my CV for me, just to get your brain to rest a little bit as well and focus on something else. It definitely helps.
Definitely.
Sorry, so I might just quickly ask a question. I've got a few questions. I mean, you can
let's go.
I want to try and nail a couple of these off because we're in the middle of CVs and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
We had a couple of questions around what's the ideal number for a CV, because there's always numbers is one of these things that I guess we think about as people applying for jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And also in terms of a cover letter, what are some of the things we should be putting in a cover letter? Just bullet point in terms of things we should be addressing.
Yeah, great.
You go, Mary.
Yeah, okay. I think for resume, it is completely dependent on the industry that you're working in. If it is something, more scientific, for instance, there's going to be a lot more detail that you're putting into your CV. Also, if you're looking at consulting or management type positions, those CVs are going to be a bit lengthier. There's a lot more that you've done in your career. There's going to be a lot more duties that you're responsible for. So it will be maybe 2 or 3 pages long, and that's okay. There's only so much, particularly if you've had a few different roles. So that's okay. We've seen some CVs that are upwards of 7 pages. I can guarantee you no one gets to that 7th page. It's just too lengthy, particularly, if your work experience is going back 20 years, you don't need to be going in detail on, what you were doing 20 years ago. It's past. What's really relevant is the roles you've had in the last 10 years. I would go into detail on those, even maybe if it's like 3 or 4 roles within the last 10 years. If it's more than that, I'd keep the last few concise. The most recent ones are always the most important. So rule of thumb, I'd always go 2 pages. I think 2 pages is safe. You can get enough detail on there. And even if you do it with, 1.5 spacing, generally there's enough room to get what you need across. So I'll let Jess maybe talk about the cover letter.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on the points with the CV. As we review hundreds and hundreds of CVs every day, so we want to get the information that we need as fast as possible. As we mentioned, we are working to a set of criteria, so for us we're just trying to find that criteria, so being able to find that as soon as possible is important. In terms of the cover letter, what you want to do in this is kind of highlight the values and things about the company that you're applying for that kind of align with your personal values and examples of that. So for example, if, they do a, adoption drive, as in a pet adoption drive, and that's kind of, you've worked within, the animal space, or you own horses like I do, that would be something that would be, that you would be able to align kind of with in your cover letter. Your cover letter probably doesn't want to be any longer than a page, because to be honest, most cover letters, they will go to the people that are actually interviewing you, not necessarily the talent or the recruiter, so the talent teams or the recruiter. They will actually go more towards kind of the hiring managers, the people that are going to be involved in your kind of career as such. So that's kind of when that information will get passed on. So no more than a page. Definitely just make sure that you're aligning your personal brand with the company's personal brand, and you're providing examples of that within your cover letter. And that's a really good opportunity for you to kind of introduce yourself as well. In terms of like, my name is Jess and I'm 25 years old and I live in XYZ. Don't need any of that. Hi, I'm interested in your job because, and here are the examples of why I think I would be suitable. So,
and what I'd add to that as well is a lot of the times in the job ad, they'll have about the role, about you, about us. Use that as your questions and talking points, particularly about the role. They might say, you know, or about you, they might say proven experience in leading a team and showing profitability, for instance. And that you can use that and say, you know, in my previous role, I've led a team of 15 people where they exceeded sales targets of 120% or whatever it may be, and play to the criteria in the job ad. And that way it shows that not only have you read their ad thoroughly, but you also understand what's needed, and that you are proving in this that you've got that experience.
Yeah.
But I mean, I had another question here. Sorry to interrupt. To say, do you need to put referees on the CV, or should you just wait until you are being asked for referees?
I would just say, honestly, put a references section and say available on request. It's some people might not know that they're being nominated as a reference, and the last thing you'd want is them to get a call not expecting it and not giving the reference that you'd like. So it's happened before. People have, you know, had a flustered day and then someone calls them and it's not a glowing reference. You always want to give your referee a heads up. They say, hey Bob, just so you know, XYZ company will call you tomorrow for a reference. Please be ready. And at least that way everyone's on the same page and no one's getting a surprise call or a reference that, you know, wasn't as good as they were expecting.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. I'll let you carry. I think you've probably got a few more slides, and then obviously there's going to be a lot more questions, but I thought I'd just go through some of those CV related ones.
Yeah, of course. It's you, Mary.
Yeah, so this is our final slide. So what we wanted to cover here is just persistence and resilience. So rejection is tough in this climate, particularly tough as well. I think we all are just wanting some good news, and, you know, any time you look for a job, it can be daunting. So you just have to, you know, be patient, and, you know, sometimes you're not going to hear back, particularly during this pandemic. Like I said before, there is a massive influx in job applications, and some businesses don't have the CRM set up to accommodate that. You know, they might only be used to getting 2 or 3 applications per week, whereas now that has dramatically increased. Or some businesses might be having CVs sent to an email, and if you multiply that, it's so hard to track. So I think it's important to not be disheartened if you're not going to hear back from some people. It's the reality in the current market. But what I would recommend is, like Jess said before, keep track of your applications. So if after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you haven't heard from somewhere, follow up, send a courtesy email, give them a call if you've got those details, and just say, hi, I just wanted to follow up my application. Did you get it? Do you need me to resend it? How are you going with the job? Things like that. Just give them a buzz. It's honestly not going to do you any harm. The worst they can say is no, or just not take your call. At least you've given it a try and you can move on. Don't be afraid. So I guess that definitely leads on from what I've just said. It can be quite exciting the first time you get a role, or the first offer you get, but it's really important that you do consider everything about that role. Does it align to what you're looking for? Is it the industry you want to work in? You know, is culturally, is it the right business? Like, do you get along with the people you've interviewed with? It can be, you know, you might just want to jump on the first role that's come through, but definitely do consider all of those things, and ask some questions. You know, if there's something that you feel in your gut isn't sitting right, or you're not sure about something, ask along the way. And, you know, at least that way, when you get to the end, you'll be able to make an informed decision and make sure that you are making the right decision for yourself. And the last thing you want to do is waste your time and waste their time. You know, they invest in training you, you put in all these hours, and then, a couple of weeks in, you're like, this isn't the right role for me. So definitely ask questions along the whole process. The next point is connect with the team. So whether it's the recruiter, the hiring manager, definitely just be on their socials. You'll be able to see if they do advertise any roles, and just shoot them a message or comment that you're interested in these sorts of roles, and at least that way they then become familiar with your name. So if your application does come through their system, they can associate you with seeing your name on LinkedIn. And the last thing is keep an open mind. When I started my job search as a graduate, I didn't know about recruitment. I was applying for everything in HR. Anything that had the word HR in it, I was there. I was applying for it. And, recruitment was one of those roles where, you covered it in uni, not so much. It was just something that I knew was part of the general HR process. And I gave it a crack. I applied for it, and 4.5 years later, here I am. So ultimately, in the beginning, when I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to do, it definitely wasn't this, but I'm glad I've stuck to the path that I've gone down, because it turns out it is exactly what I wanted. And it's important to keep that in mind. Don't pigeonhole yourself to what you think is best for you. Have a look and see where else your skills can be used, what other industries, what other roles, particularly anyone with an analytical background. There's so many options there. We had a guy that worked with us. He came from a statistics background, but his analytical and critical thinking skills were really important to the role that he did with us. And we've got all sorts of people coming from different backgrounds. Psychological, we've had people with psych degrees that have worked with us, and because it is a very people-focused business, it's been actually quite valuable for us to have people with those sorts of skill sets. So definitely have a look and be a bit creative.
Fantastic.
And obviously in the end, just make sure you keep at it. Persistence is key, and keep in mind the current market that we're unfortunately facing at the moment. It is tough, but there are definitely some good opportunities arising once the market picks up. So when we're all allowed out of our homes, allocate 1 to 2 hours per day or week, a goal that you can achieve, and don't be too hard on yourself. Make it easy on yourself. Use technology to your advantage. Us as recruiters, hiring managers certainly do use technology to our advantage, so make it work for you as well. Make sure you're open to opportunities on LinkedIn. Set up your job alerts. Have all relevant documents in one folder, and make sure you create your spreadsheet. And good luck. Our fingers are definitely crossed for you, so please feel free to reach out to us on our socials, and you can keep updated with what's happening at People to People. There may be some opportunities that you could be interested in. We also post blogs and market updates, so you can get a sense of what is going on around you. We also do a Facebook Live, 12:30 p.m. every Friday, with our Managing Director, Mark Smith. He provides market updates for across the country, job hunting tips, not just from us, but from other recruiters and very established recruiters as well, and any hot jobs that we've got going on at the moment. So definitely sign into our Facebook page and give it a like, and you can keep in touch with us there and on LinkedIn and on our website. And that's us.
Fantastic. Look, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, what a wealth of information, and maybe we can share the information with the participants later on, because there's some great tips in that. I'm sure the students on the call would love to refer to it later. As you know, there are some questions hanging in the wings there. So, and with technology, you can actually vote on the questions people to see, and they sort of float to the top. So I guess it helps us. To save you retyping the question 3 or 4 times in here, you actually look at the questions that have been asked. If you like it, it means that you also want that question asked. So look, we'll just go from the top at the moment. So we've got a question here. How do international students approach companies for internships and graduate jobs? Would you suggest sending forced applications even when there's no opening? So essentially just putting yourself out there?
I think there are different ways you can approach that. You certainly can, but what I would probably recommend that you do is kind of approach it a little bit more, I guess, methodically and systematically. So it could be just researching kind of who the hiring managers or talent team are, perhaps connecting with with them on LinkedIn. It could be, you know, a variety of kind of different kind of contact points, finding out who the best person to speak to is. That a lot of people will have, a lot of companies will have recruitment emails, so it could be recruitment@peopletopeople.com.au. So you could certainly reach out to that platform. They'll then keep it on file when they do have a vacancy. They can, you know, reach out to you. A lot of companies don't know what they're looking for until it kind of slaps them in the face. So definitely there's no harm in reaching out, but certainly keep your kind of expectations at a low if there is no vacancy, just knowing that you're putting yourself out there and making that point of contact so that they can remember you when they do need someone. So yeah, definitely reach out, but you know, try not to be too try not to expect too much in return, particularly if there isn't a vacancy available. That's my tip.
Definitely. And reach out to your uni as well. There's always going to be, we hire our interns through a university, so it can go towards your you know, your studies and things like that, so definitely keep an eye out. But yeah, like just said, a lot of businesses will have a speculative application section on their websites where you can upload your details, and when something does come up in the future, they can get in touch with you.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've got the next favorite one here is, I saw a job application require 1, 2, 3 years of experience. As a fresh graduate, should we be afraid of this kind of condition? As a soon-to-be science graduate, I found a lot of the job market for science requires some kind of experience. What do you think I should do?
That's a good question. For some industries, it's actually pretty sure it's quite a taboo requirement to put years of experience. So some industries it is obviously needed. Particularly with the 1 year mark, look at what exactly, why do they need 1 or 2 years experience? So sometimes in the job ad, they will actually outline why that experience is necessary. It might be it's something with the pay grade, for instance. Particularly government jobs, they go through a particular pay grade, so the years of experience warrants how much you're getting paid. So sometimes, you know, they need to outline that, but definitely have a look and see, you know, why that is. If you can't see it in the ad, like there's nothing specifically, you know, outlining why you need 1 to 2 years experience, give it a crack. Like, it's not going to hurt. If you've got some experience of what they're asking for, there's no harm in applying. Have a look as well at, sometimes they will be worded as entry level or junior or graduate. So type for those sorts of words in your job search as well, just to filter something that is more suitable for you.
Definitely. I think, you know, if you've got 5, you know, if they're like you will have, and they list, you know, 5 or 6 key kind of criteria that they're looking for, and you've got 4 out of those 5, you meet 4 of those criteria, but perhaps you don't have 2 years experience. What we sometimes find, particularly with clients that we work for, is that they're looking for a unicorn. They're looking for someone who has the perfect CV, and sometimes that person doesn't exist. So sometimes they do, don't get me wrong, but sometimes they just don't exist. So, you know, it's our job as recruiters to obviously educate our clients about what's out there in the market. But if you're meeting 4 of that 5 criteria, you're already in with, you know, a good shot. So I just say definitely, you know, perhaps if you were to take out that 3 to 5 years criteria and you looked at everything else that they were looking for, and you felt that you met that that kind of, you know, what it is that they're looking for, then definitely go ahead and apply.
Fantastic. We've got a couple of questions here on LinkedIn. So any tips of how I should stand out on LinkedIn, but also, you know, getting noticed by recruiters on your LinkedIn page?
Yeah, I actually have a video on this, so I will send that to you, Tavita, to share with everyone later.
Fantastic.
We've probably got a blog as well, so yeah, it's a hard one to kind of articulate straight away. But I guess what you want to do, LinkedIn has this thing called an all-star status. So it's essentially, it gives you prompts of all the different things you should fill out on your profile. I recommend getting to the all-star status and making sure that everything is filled. So the number one thing I would suggest for graduates, and this is what I did when I was looking, is in my headline on my LinkedIn, I'd put looking for opportunities in HR. If you're a PhD grad, you might say PhD graduate looking for roles in X. So that will be the first thing people see. If you come up in their suggested friends suggested connections or recommendations, they will see Bob Smith, PhD graduate looking for a job. So that is where I would start, just to make it a bit more visible. And like we touched on before, connect with peers and connect with people in the industries you want to be working with. Most people will accept pretty much all requests they get come through. So don't worry if someone doesn't, accept your request. It's not like Facebook. People do accept randoms on LinkedIn. So, there's no harm in it. That's probably my main suggestion.
Definitely making sure that you've, I think with the new COVID situation that we're in at the moment, there is a filter that you can put over the top of your profile picture, which is ready to work. So it is a little green symbol that you can allocate to your profile. You can also allow yourself to be open to opportunities. Please, if you are setting up your privacy settings on LinkedIn, make sure that you're open to email. InMail it's called. There's nothing more frustrating than us sitting on the back end of Recruiter and wanting to connect with a perfect candidate has listed themselves as open to opportunities, and you can't send them an email. So just make sure that your privacy settings are allowing for us to connect with you, particularly recruiters. We do pay to have access to the back end of LinkedIn. That's our job. So, we want to be able to use that platform as best as we can, and obviously connect with you. So check your privacy settings, definitely. Make sure you're listed as open to new opportunities, for particularly more senior jobs. A lot of the time we won't connect or we won't touch candidates who haven't listed that themselves as open to opportunities. Remember, your employer does not see that you are open to opportunities unless you work as a recruiter and another recruiter is searching you. And then you're in a bit of trouble. But other than that, make sure that you are listed. Your employer doesn't see it. And we will obviously do the best that we can to make sure that we're keeping it as private as possible, for sure.
Fantastic. Great tips there. Now we have one here. How do you interview well over Zoom, since it's a different experience as opposed to face-to-face?
Well, I definitely
think it's easier. I think, being in the comfort of your own home, it's almost a little bit easier interviewing over Zoom. They don't get to, not that we'll probably be shaking hands when we're greeting someone for a while, but, there's no sweaty palms, there's no shakes when you meet someone, there's no getting flustered. So
trying to find our building.
So, I think it is a little bit easier working from home, and the fact that you're in a comfortable space is made such a difference, I think, to a lot of people. But try and get a neutral background. Like I've got my plant wall behind me, so something that's not too in your face. You don't want a messy bedroom or something in the background. Do keep it professional. Even if it is just against a blank white wall, that is definitely key. And just put a presentable top on. You can be in your tracksuits down the bottom. No one cares. But,
I can guarantee you I've got Ugg boots on right now.
But just keep it professional, even if it is just a plain coloured shirt or t-shirt or whatever it may be. No crazy graphics, things like that. But just try keep it nice and simple. And just general kind of presentation as you would when you normally go to an interview. But don't worry too much about having to put on a whole three-piece suit. A lot of people are working from home, and even, I've had times where I've spoken to my clients and I'm expecting them to be all dressed up in suits, but we're all just in tracky dacks at home. So don't stress too much about, going the full mile. But I think just it's important to have a good environment. Be in a quiet space, don't get distracted. Particularly if you've got pets or children, things like that, make sure that they're locked in another room and so you can focus on the interview.
Yeah, I've got a video on that too, so I'll flick it across with Mary's one.
Yeah, incredible. So just before I get to the next question, people have amazing resources on their website that have a lot of blogs and vlogs about the situations that prop up in these questions. So I think after the session, we'll definitely send the link to that resource, because it's I've been to it. There's a lot of content, great content. So I think it's definitely worth the look.
I think you put out like 2 blogs a week or something, so you can definitely.
Yeah, that's huge. So we have a question here. Do you think it's worth when you're reaching out to a recruiter, do you think it makes a difference if you sort of speak to them, or do you email them directly? What do you think is the best way to chat to a recruit at the moment?
Phone.
Phone, yeah. Give us a call.
Yeah.
It's our job to answer phone calls and talk to candidates. That's literally what we do day in, day out. Obviously, we have to talk to clients as well, but it is, just pick up the phone and give us a call. If we can't help you, we may know someone else that can. We'll give you our email addresses, or tell you to connect with us on LinkedIn or whatever it may be. We're going to be honest. Most recruiters will be really honest. If we can't help you, we'll tell you that, because we don't want you to be in a position where you think you're kind of working with a recruiter or anything like that. If we can't help you, we'll let you know. Pick up the phone, call us. It's what we do all day. So
fantastic. Okay, so I've got a couple more CV related questions here. So can we mention our assignments which we did, which we've done on our CV or cover letter? Yes?
I think that's very powerful. Placements, assignments that you've done, definitely really helpful. For some roles, particularly if it's like and forgive me if you mean a placement as opposed to a written assignment, but I think it shows that you have shown initiative, I think, in what you've done and the industry that you're working in. So it's definitely powerful. So I
think the question might have been both ways there about placements, but also for some students, they haven't actually been out into the workforce, and I guess some of the work they do in an assignment or a paper they've written with a group or something. I guess I think the question was, would that be relevant in a cover letter or a CV, or it's probably not worth mentioning?
I think that if you, are struggling kind of with the actual physical work experience that you do, definitely. It wouldn't be something, if you had relevant experience, I'd be more focusing on how those skill sets are transferable. But if you've worked on, a paper and you've gotten a really good mark, or you think that it's relevant and it highlights your transferable skills into that particular role, absolutely go for it. That's totally fine. If you want to, make mention of the fact that you got a HD in marketing or, digital or whatever, and that's relevant to the position that you're applying for. If you're applying for a digital marketer, you can either highlight it in your CV or highlight it in your cover letter. So there's definitely two ways you can go about it. But I would certainly make sure that if there are any key achievements that you made throughout your time in education and in uni, that's something you can highlight on your resume if you feel that your actual physical work experience is lacking a little bit, for sure.
Yeah. And in addition, I'd say also, don't be afraid to mention your electives. You don't have to go through every subject that you studied in your CV, but in your cover letter, if there's elements of the job where they say marketing experience, is beneficial but not essential. For instance, I did a major in human resource management, but then I had some electives throughout my degree that were marketing related. So in my job application, in my cover letter, I mentioned that. So I mentioned, although my studies are more with the HR side of things, I do have a passion for marketing, and it's why I picked electives in that space. So don't be afraid to, if it is relevant to the job, definitely mention it.
Fantastic. We have a quick one here. Do mostly international experience on CVs deter local employers?
Not really. I think depending on the role, if it is a full-time job, for instance, and you're on a student visa and your restrictions are 40 hours a fortnight, then that can impact it. I think there was another question there that asked as well about what I meant by working rights. So I guess I can kind of tie these both in. So if it's beneficial to the job that you need to be working full-time, definitely outline that. So for instance, at the moment, within the health industry, because there is such a shortage and such a demand in healthcare and nursing homes, for instance, anyone that is on a student visa and is studying anything to do with nursing or aged care actually gets to work full-time hours instead of having the 40-hour a fortnight restriction. So be familiar with things like that in your industry and make note of it when you are applying for jobs. So if you can work full-time hours, great, mention it. If you can only work 20 hours, mention that. If you're on a graduate visa and you've only got 2 or 3 years, do mention it. I think the last thing you want to do is give false hope to someone. You wouldn't want that in return. You wouldn't want someone to tell you, oh, yep, this is a permanent job, and then turns out it's really a 12-month contract and you're without a job after 12 months. So think of it in the reverse as well. So, but in most cases, I mean, people are like I said before, I recruit a lot of candidates on working holiday visas, student visas, and sometimes it's a bit more beneficial to me to hire people from that sort of background. So depending on the industry, visa status and overseas experience really doesn't matter.
Yeah, just making sure that you're highlighting your duties and responsibilities, and again, making sure that they align to the job that you're applying for is super important as well.
Great. We've got, I'm just going to go back to the top voted one here. So I wanted to know on some tips to make, I wanted some tips on how to make relevant networks during lockdown.
Well, business hours are still 9 to 5. So you're not kind of out of the game yet. You can still do virtual, you can still do Zoom. That's kind of how you would have to kind of tailor your networking. We certainly had to pivot quite quickly in terms of us working from home and obviously working with our clients. You know, Mary, for example, usually goes out to site, 2 or 3 times a month to visit the temps that are working out there. So, you know, we had to pivot and make that all virtual and make sure that our candidates were, you know, in a safe working environment on that temp and contract side. You can still reach out to people digitally. I was in a LinkedIn seminar today, and people are on LinkedIn 60% more nowadays. They are scrolling their feed. Literally, this is a quote I got today, 60% more than they were pre-COVID. So they're more connected than ever. People are loving, some people are loving the virtual side of things. It kind of does take that nervousness a bit away as well. You're in your own space, so use it to your advantage. You're able to kind of tailor, you know, your networking approach to different time zones, for example. So you could reach out to someone in the UK that has an interesting career, for example. So the virtual world is definitely becoming more and more common. So don't feel, I guess, scared to reach out and say, hey, are you free for a virtual Zoom call or Microsoft Teams or anything like that. Definitely use your socials to your advantage just continue to kind of do what you're doing. But unfortunately, just pivot it to a more, virtual sense. This is a really great example. People are holding networking evenings. The RCSA, for example, when Mary received her fabulous award, we did a virtual award ceremony as well. And we could see everybody that was in the chat room and things like that. So we were able to, go to our, colleagues and things like that and be like, hey, did you see the awards? So it's definitely things like that people are starting to facilitate. So, these networking nights as well are excellent.
Fantastic. I'm going to try and, we're literally on time, but I think I've got a couple of really short ones that I might push through if possible.
That's right. I'm okay for time. I don't know about Jess, so that's all right if we go a few minutes over.
I try and be respectful of people's time. So we've got one here. Do you have any thoughts or tips about software that searches for keywords in resumes and cover letters? Do you have any thoughts or tips about that?
Thoughts and tips.
Well, I know we have used AI in the past for candidate sourcing. So I have put in, I can't even remember the name of it, but we did have a system embedded into our CRM where I would put in keywords that would then search a candidate's CV and match it. So I'm sure some businesses that use AI as part of their daily would probably have a system like this for their candidate resourcing. So I guess do keep that in mind for some industries. And what we say is, when we post ads, for instance, we keep in mind SEO, so search engine optimization. The more frequently a word comes up, the higher it will rank. So keep that in mind. If you're a financial analyst, mention that a couple of times in your CV. So if the business does have some sort of algorithm that searches CVs and cover letters, that it picks up that. So put it in your cover letter, put it in your position title, put it in your duties. If it's a financial consulting business, say, I'm currently working for a financial consulting business, just so that those sorts of words come up a little bit more often. But it is happening, and I think it'll continue with a lot of, you know, things moving to automation. I think that's something that will become more prominent. So you want to make sure that those words are around in your CV.
Have a database search function in which we can put in, you know, specific words, keyword titles, locations, and things like that to search our databases for candidates. And these may be candidates that we have primarily registered before or have applied to jobs through us or anything like that. Yes, it does happen, and we do search for it. Making sure that you're putting, like, for example, if your title is administration assistant, making sure that you've put in administration as well as administrative. So, you know, the variations on the words. If you've put in analyst, making sure that you're putting in, I analysed X, Y, Z. So, you know, using your vocabulary in your descriptions and things like that of your titles and the descriptions of your job titles. Yeah, making sure that you're using kind of broad language, and that is going to kind of pick up on keyword searches. But yeah, unfortunately, it is something that is going to continue to kind of evolve. But, you know, at this stage, I know on a personal level, I look at every CV with my own human eyes, you know, every time. So I don't skim CVs or anything like that. I make sure that I read them. And even though that may only take me, you know, 30 or 40 seconds because I, you know, have been doing it for a while and I know what I'm looking for. Yeah, it is unfortunately something that's going to become more and more prevalent, particularly within graduate recruitment, because there is that volume there and they need to be able to dwindle it down. So that's why things like spelling mistakes, AI can now pick up spelling mistakes. So that may unfortunately, you know, put you out of the race. So just making sure that you're super careful with things like that. Definitely.
Brilliant. Okay, so I've got a question here from the same person twice, so I think it's only fair that I ask it. Can a recent PhD graduate apply in graduate roles? If yes, is that okay if the PhD student shows their R&D experience / laboratory experience in the resume?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I think some I know from my experience helping businesses recruit for grad, or when they're going through their grad programs, it's quite beneficial to them because it shows you know, dedication as well. I think R&D is definitely something that takes a bit of time. So showing that commitment to your studies will ultimately reflect the commitment into the job. So if you do have that, it definitely doesn't hurt putting it in. You don't want to go into too much depth of everything, you know, that you did find in that, but definitely worth mentioning. And yeah, I guess in answer to your question, PhD students can definitely apply to graduate roles. It obviously then reflects on your salary, things like that. Graduate roles don't normally pay so high. So, you know, if that's something you're willing to make a cut for, obviously, you know, your own financial situation, but generally speaking, yeah, it should be fine.
Okay, brilliant. So another question here. Should we add our coursework subjects on our LinkedIn profile underneath education section?
I don't think so.
Not really. If you feel like it's relevant, go for it. If you want to put hours and hours and hours into your LinkedIn, that's totally fine. You can. But yeah, it's not something that I would actively look for. For us, we have an understanding of kind of what a business degree entails, or what a diploma of legal services entails, or, you know, that's our job to kind of have that understanding as well. So yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say it's super relevant, no.
Where I would say it plays a part is on LinkedIn. There's a section called skills, and that's where you can add it in. So if there's particular subjects that you studied, so, you know, say psychology, if there's particular elements within psychology, like, you know, mental disorders or, you know, something like that, in your skills section, you can highlight some of the skills that you have relating to your coursework. So there's always subtopics in there, so you can use those subtopics as skills.
Also, you know, and this is kind of on more of a basic level, and in the key example that we use, we're using today is the Certificate 3 in Aged Care, so assisting the Victorian Government and the RCSA in placement of aged care candidates. So, you know, manual handling is a part of that certificate 3. So if you have a certificate 3, you have completed manual handling. So we want to know that because that's part of our compliance framework. So that kind of stuff can be really helpful. And that's the kind of things that I would include if, you've done, a degree in hospitality or events, and you have your, RSA, what's it called? Responsible Service of Alcohol. That's the kind of thing that I want to know, because that's part of a compliance framework as well. So yeah, if it's around compliance or like Mary said, you can certainly include it.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try, I've got 2 more that I probably want to try and get through these top 2 here. So what's the normal amount of jobs for people to apply for, be getting an offer or even just an interview? I get a lot of people saying that they're applying for 100+ jobs, and I can't help but wonder how they even found so many jobs they're eligible for, let alone interested in.
Yeah, we've all been there. I reckon I applied for about 30 odd jobs when I graduated and literally got a call from maybe a quarter of them, and then had interviews with even fewer. So your application to interview ratio is going to be massive, particularly in the current climate. So don't let that deter you. I think the averages can be, I probably can't give you an exact number, but it will be high. You will have to apply for a lot of jobs before you get an interview somewhere, or even a phone screen. So, if you can get 1 for 1, good on you. Your CV must be very impressive, but in most cases, it will take a few shots before you can get a call from somewhere. So definitely keep that in mind. And like we said, don't be very specific with your search criteria. That's why probably some people have 50+ applications, because it's not all the same role that they're applying for. They're all roles that are relevant to what they've studied. And you can always kind of search by that as well. So say if you've got a bachelor in health, whatever, that was just the first thing that came to my mind. You can type that into Seek and just say degree in XYZ, and you'll get a list of jobs that have mentioned as part of their criteria that a degree in that certain thing is a criteria. So that's a little trick.
Yeah, and you'll probably find that you're applying for 10, 15, 20 different jobs a week when you first start, and that's kind of and you may be talking to 2 or 3 of them or whatever, but also that's an education thing on your end. You're trying to find out kind of what kind of roles are going to be suitable for you. So you might find that week 1 you're applying for 50 jobs, week 2 it might be 40, and you might find that it does start to dwindle down as you kind of work out what suits you best and what actual role you are looking for. So certainly start broad. I think for me it was like, I don't even know, a lot of jobs, like a lot. And it was over a really long period. I was very lucky. I was in a position, I was managing a retail store, so I didn't actually need to I was looking, it took me a while to kind of work out what it is that I wanted. So if you can set yourself up for that and take your time, it's going to be way more beneficial because you're going to find something that you really love.
Fantastic. Look, I'm going to leave it there. The questions are still here. We're going to ask Andrew to send them to you afterwards, if that's all right. Yeah. Very conscious of everyone's time. Really appreciate both of you being on today's, this evening's session, actually. So a lot of great content that you've presented, but also some really great insights and tips into supporting the students here at University of Melbourne to sort of put themselves forward or out there on ahead of the pack, as it may be. So any other closing comments from you, Mary or Jessica?
No, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And yeah, I think just be patient and don't put too much pressure on yourself, particularly during this time.
Amazing. Look, just to let everyone know on the call, we will be following up this with the recording we'll put up on our site in the next few days. We will send these questions out to Mary and Jessica to help us fulfill those answers. You can reach any of our resources through our webpage. But also we'll make sure we've got the links up to the people-to-people resources page to sort of help you find those extra resources. So tonight was our very first session to be running in the sort of early evening, late evening. So this was based on some feedback we received from first semester that students would like to see this from about 6 o'clock, especially on this topic. So this is our first one kicking off. We're really happy that it's we've got a lot of people on the call and that people to people were able to support us at these time slots. So please look out for these more events and webinars through our Facebook and website. Tuesdays for us is in the employability arena. Wednesdays for us is about supporting your academic skills at university, and Thursdays is about supporting your personal health and well-being. So thanks once again to people, Mary and Jessica. Really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for being on the call. Thanks Andrew for supporting. Have a great evening and good night.